asset? Which one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best? 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 What's the second best?
Welcome to Discover Crypto Live, where we bring you all the alpha, all the charts, and we tell you what is happening in crypto today. We are coming to you live 5 days a week, so smash that like button as you come on in. And we have a very special guest today, as we're going to talk about, is alt season over? Is Bitcoin top in? A lot of people are calling for a bear market. They're calling for another leg down for Bitcoin to hit the 60K level. We're going to look at all of this, and TJ is also in with us today. How are we all doing today, fellas?
We're doing great. And we've also are going to be joined with a special guest, Chris from Bitcoin IRA. You guys know him. You love him. He's back here. He's actually in studio with us in the flesh. He's got me giving us some good takes. So, yeah, looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
I'm liking the 4-shot. You know, we got like a little Brady brunch thing going on.
Brady brunch. Okay.
Brunch, you know, or bunch.
Yeah.
I actually just saw the Usher meme where he thought he was in the middle and he was like in the bottom left corner looking all the directions. But speaking of looking all directions, let's look at all the coins in the market cap here, because Bitcoin taking a huge tumble, ETH taking a huge tumble, the altcoins taking huge tumbles. You can just see massive bleeding across the board here. Dogecoin down 7%, Cardano down 5%, Solana down 6%. And we have Toncoin, one of the few coins that are in the green, but look at Chainlink. Chainlink is down almost 10% today. Do we have any hope in the crypto market? Crow. We're going to talk about Crow. We're going to tell you why that is pumping later. EOS is up. TJ, how does that make you feel? EOS.
Dude, that's a weird one to see up. EOS
knows in the top 100 still.
Yeah, EOS being the one of those. That's the definition of a dinosaur coin right there. So I don't know what to say about that. Weird whale games is what I'll call it. Yeah.
Pi Network is up. Speaking of weird whale games, that coin is up 0.6% here. We have Barachain that is coming in flat. But when we look at the biggest losers, get ready to fall out of your chair. You're probably going to see some of your favorite altcoins here. Look at that. We have Injective down 10%. WorldCoin, hopefully that's no one's favorite altcoin. That one's down 10%. IMX is down 10%. We have Bonk. So we're seeing some memes like Bonk and Trump on the way down. Polygon with a huge 10% dump. Chainlink, I'm still surprised with the 10% dump there. Avalanche with a huge dump as well, 8.7%, even though they got some good news today. Josh, what are you thinking about this market right now?
I mean, I'm thinking about to open some trades here, looking at some longs. I mean, this is playing out like we showed you guys. If you just pull up the screen here, of course, you know, we put this out on X yesterday. We've been covering this with you guys. Actually, this is since for the last week we've been covering this, but was that futures gap that was created. And so today, you know, guys, you got to follow these futures gaps. I mean, they fill 90% of the time. And today, the PCE reading did not come out hot like we wanted it to, but this is causing the markets to pull back here today and see the SPX drop. Of course, Bitcoin now fill that futures gap. The one below it is already filled here today. So what I'd be looking for here is now some support regions. Of course, you got your 200-day moving average down towards about $80,400. But really, all eyes are on this SPX here too. So, you know, I'm not looking to, you know, expect anything under the 55. You're going to have some decent support here, whether we get a double bottom or not. This is going to be what I'm watching over the coming days here. It is Friday. So what I would like to see is Bitcoin definitely close high as possible towards the end of the daily, because we are going to create a new gap. So what might happen is, especially if you get a sell off over the weekend, if we close at like 84 or 85 and Bitcoin sells off over the weekend, we're going to do what? We're going to create another futures gap yet again. And these just provenly show they're great ranges to follow right now. So this is what we covered, you know, looking for 10% drops while Bitcoin fills that gap. I think there's going to be some really good scalp trades on the market, or some swing trades here over the weekend we're going to be looking for.
Chris, you know, I got a quick question. You do have a product as Bitcoin IRA. You roll people's 401ks into Bitcoin or other digital assets. When you see the markets dumping, are people more inclined to put some funds, you know, put their existing retirement account into Bitcoin? Or is it when the market is pumping, do you see more activity in the low 80s or 70s? Or did you see more activity when we're above 105?
That's a great question, DZ. Actually, interestingly enough, I was looking at the data before I flew out here, and for the last about 1.5 billion of transactions we've had on the platform, We've been month by month relatively 50-50. For every buyer in the market, there's a seller. Now, we've got over 200,000 users. So we've got guys that have been with us since 2016 and people that have just entered the market in the last quarter. But for this month in March, with this inability to break into 90, I've noticed it shifting where we've got about 2/3 of folks that are buying in this month and only 1/3 that are liquidating or selling off in this month. And that's the whole gauntlet. So definitely this is a chance for folks to double down and add more in or re-enter the market at lower rates.
Have you checked that data to see if it's a leading indicator or a lagging indicator?
I don't want to misspeak today, so I'll have to get back to you
That
on
makes
that.
a lot of sense. No, tell me if it's going up, retirement man. I do have, speaking of retirement, I got some trades in. I honestly, I would have mentioned it a lot sooner. This is just a 5-minute chart. I just got them in, but we are starting to pump here on some of these time frames. And so the trades are going a little bit more green than I was expecting here. We're up about 13% on the SWE trade. And we're also in a link trade, and link trade only up 2.5%. So maybe smelling a lot of bullishness for SWE in the markets. I know a lot of people like that token there. And so we'll be going into the members stream. We'll keep the trades open and we'll talk more about the trades in that stream.
Real quick, we did have a question about the PCE. Obviously, we've been watching that all week, waiting for this data to come out, and it did. Did that not add? I move this. Boom. There we go. PCE data here. So somebody was in the question was asking what were the numbers? PCE price index year over year 2.5, like the estimate of 2.5. For PCE year over year 2.8, estimated 2.6. So it's not, that could be a little bit of this pullback. You know, if the estimation was 2.6, it's still a little bit hot at 2.8, but still, I think overall heading in the right direction. I don't think this is too much of an overreaction. But Josh, did you have any thoughts on the PCE numbers?
I mean, they're good for us on our June prediction. You know, coming out a little bit softer here is going to have just cause negative correlation over to the markets. And you can see that in the Fed Watch tool. So the Fed Watch tool jumped from about 66% yesterday that we covered on the stream to now 77.3 or
Wow.
78%. So still looks like our June prediction here is on par. That is the focus right now for seeing the first rate cut. Right now, the markets, guys, they're only priced into 50 or 225 basis point rate cuts for this year, which means that you're looking at one potentially in October, which of course you can see that it's almost a 97% chance we have a 25 basis point rate cut by October. And it is roughly a 100% chance we have a rate cut by December. So we are looking at 250 basis or 50 basis points in total, which means anything past that, any data that comes out over the course of April, because you guys may not know this, there is no FOMC meeting in April. We have a full month of economic data. So May 7th is going to be that next date for the FOMC meeting. I do not expect an interest rate cut here. You guys know this. We're still at an 82% for the market here. I expect, you know, again, more dovish conversation, but we're really looking for the end of quantitative tightening to take place in, of course, June. Now, you know, a lot of economists are going to battle between this. This is the battle of economists right now. And like, what's going to happen to tariffs? What's going to happen with inflation? Is inflation going to be impacting us as harshly as a lot of, you know, maybe more left-leaning economists want to make it out to be? And that is what we have to watch over the next 2 months here, because if they announce that end of QT, this is where I keep telling bears is like, as soon as the market starts hearing that, you're going to get a pretty quick rebound. People panic over these little price moves. I mean, we've been trading scalp ranges here for what feels like the last 2, 3, 4 weeks at this point. You guys got to remember that Bitcoin can move at the snap of a finger. The SPX can move at the snap of a finger and recover this in 2 to 3 days. Bitcoin could recover this in 2 to 3 days. I mean, look at these crazy candlesticks right here, $10,000 candlesticks. So for me right now is just like, okay, what's on the horizon? Which I'll cover the PCE here a little bit. I'll pull up some articles and some, economists just overall that have some perspectives. But it looks like we're in line with that June ending of quantitative tightening, and that is really good for markets overall.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And we did have a question here from one of our members for Chris specifically. We want to use you while you're here. Obviously, none of us are tax experts. Chris does work in the retirement industry, so we can ask these questions while he's here. This is just our own take on things. But question for Chris: can I transfer my 401k into his crypto IRA?
The answer is most likely yes. So especially if you're over 59 and a half, which I don't know what your guys' audience range is. If you're a little younger than that,
Actually,
then
we're about 35 to 55. It's actually about, right in that range.
Perfect. Then also, what a lot of folks don't know is once you leave your job, you can liberate your 401k from its old provider, and it's pretty common to not leave that behind. Actually, about $3 or $4 trillion are sitting in old 401ks that could be rolled over into IRAs. And then there are some groups where they can offer you to do what's known as an in-service withdrawal. It's best, or if you talk to one of our guys or gals over at Bitcoin IRA, we can connect with your retirement provider for your 401k and find out all the options that you have available.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Now, folks, we are seeing a lot of action in the price charts. If we click in, we're seeing a little bit of a nice little bounce. Look at this 1 minute chart on ETH Bitcoin. So we're starting to see some strength. We're going to talk about Ethereum in a little bit, but I do want to just rewind the track just a little bit here. This is the daily chart on ETH BTC. Now, we had talked about a certain level a few days ago and then about a month or two ago. So we're going to measure this so you can see where we bottomed out 15 days ago. And we had another bottom, was it about 53 days ago? We had talked about this level, and these are some old drawings from that area. I think first started putting these down 53. I said, this is going to be a very important level for Bitcoin, Ethereum. And you can see this has acted as a lot of support and a lot of resistance in the past. And to me, this is kind of spelling strong support. And so maybe Ethereum can kick off a little bit of a bull run, but we are seeing just a lot of pain in the streets. So you might be wondering, why the heck is Ethereum down today? Ethereum is going to be a front runner for a lot of the alt season. I have a lot of conviction in Solana. I have a lot of conviction in Cardano, but I still think Ethereum kind of leads the way besides Bitcoin when it comes to alt season. Are we going to see it or not? And so a few reasons why Ethereum price is down today. We scroll down a little bit now. Several factors. Trump's tariff tensions, I think that's fair, and its overall impact on risk on markets, long liquidations, and bearish technicals. So when Trump imposed the tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China earlier this month, ETH dropped, I wasn't aware it was this fast, from 3,400 to 2,100 in less than 72 hours before it started to recover. And then we have Mexican President Sheinbaum. Reciprocal tariffs on the reciprocal tariffs are coming. So the markets did not like her reaction to the Trump tariff threats there. Then we also had the long liquidations, accelerates ETH's downtrend. 97 million were wiped out in the last 24 hours. I'm sure it's a lot higher than that since this article. Looking at liquidation maps, you could also see this on FOMO. We are starting to get more liquidations above us rather than below. And you can see wiping out all this liquidations, wiping out liquidations, and now starting to get some bullish liquidations ahead of us. And we're looking at just the technicals. Got a little bit of a bear flag forming here. You can see, you measure it there, and then it might break down the technical length of this pole. So let's go ahead and throw that on there. I have the ETH chart right here. I just want to show you that ETH Bitcoin for sure. Go to the daily. You'll see it. There's the bull flag. We actually drew this structure. I didn't even want to put it into existence. I didn't even want to say a bear flag. You can definitely see the pole there. You can see the flag pennant. But is this how low we can expect to go?
Oh, no.
I'm saying no, folks. I don't. That's Chris,
no.
okay, Josh, are we going to see $1,100 ETH?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Obviously, it's
pretty big drop.
That is a big drop. And I think Ethereum is definitely beat down right now. Sentiment as at an extreme low. I'm seeing people saying Ethereum is dead more than ever. I think Ansem even said yesterday, you'll never get a chance to sell above 2,000 again type of sentiment. And I was like, you want to bet me on that? I do think what Josh was talking about earlier, what we've been saying on this channel for a very long time, when we get a Fed pivot or we get back to a easing environment, you'll see altcoins do extremely well. It's a full, because I think you just said, DZ, like there's still risk off mindset with a lot of this stuff going on. And when it's a full risk on environment, which is coming up very, very soon, I think we're going to see altcoins absolutely soar. So I think we even had in the title is now the time to buy altcoins. And I think the answer is specifically for the strong ones, like you mentioned, the Solanas and the Chainlinks, the Ethereums, the Cardanos. If you believe in any coin other than Bitcoin and it's got some strong fundamentals, I think now's the time to do it. Yeah, Kenny says ETH is dead. Well, I think all of the stablecoin issuers out there would disagree. ETH doesn't suck if you're trying to issue a stablecoin. ETH doesn't suck if you want security. It doesn't suck if you want to have a third party. You not have to trust a third party intermediary, have a high level of decentralization that you can actually facilitate DeFi on. So Yeah, I think but this max bearishness tells me we're near a bottom. So, like I wouldn't say it's out of the cards that Ethereum goes down that low, but I would be shocked. I think this is a pretty near bottom. I mean, we're 60% off all-time highs right now. And yeah, I think Ethereum's going to be one of the most hated rallies, but I
Yeah,
do want to go ahead.
I was just going to show a chart for it. I was like, it's in the daily chart on Ethereum has just been in this range. So like this parallel, it's ugly. I'm not going to say this is pretty at all, but let's see, pull it up here.
I got you. Yeah, it just takes me a second.
There we go. Perfect. So yeah, the bottom of this would be about 1400. And if we're even hitting the bottom of this, that is going to be really, really ugly right there. So I would just say 1100, you're asking for, I don't know, you need some really bad things to happen. And I know the tariffs are not necessarily, they're not a good thing at all for markets. They bring the uncertainty, but we know like everything goes through April 2nd. And then you're going to see how that impacts us over the next month with the immediate term inflation or the adjustments based off auto manufacturers, etc. I don't know what would take us to that's a 50% drop nearly on Ethereum here. And I would agree with you, TJ. I think that you're really, I don't know. I'm not waiting for those levels. I'm telling you, if Ethereum's at $1,100, I am picking up again.
Well, let me ask you guys this. We're talking about a Fed pivot. What do you guys think about a tariff pivot? How likely would you put that he moves quickly back to where it was versus trying to stand strong through April, May, June? Do you think we're going to see some pivoting in April? What do you think?
The only thing I could point to is how the other world leaders have reacted over the past 60 days. We don't really have much more data than that. And we're seeing a lot of saber rattling and then 72 hours later capitulating. And maybe the shine bomb, we're like, oh, we're gonna tariff your tariff, or we're gonna escalate. But eventually people quit playing the banjo. And I think it's probably going to follow that trend. Hey, I'm real pissed off and I'm going to get you. And then 72 hours later, they ink a deal.
Absolutely. I was thinking the same thing there, DZ, there's a lot of saber rattling. And also this morning, Canada is trying to get Europe to join them in the battle against the tariffs and obviously the Mexican president as well. This is all a lot of posturing that's happening. But at the end of the day, it could drag it out a little bit. But let's remember that these economies are really based on American consumerism. So at the macro level, they're going to blink first before us. It may take a little longer for them to blink. I did want to add in on the ETH stuff that you guys were talking about. There was a comment in here that said it's hiding a hidden rocket, or ETH has a hidden rocket. Off the charts, off the data that you guys are focused on, from what I know in building products around Ethereum, we used to have staking back in 2021, 22, before the fallout that happened with Alameda and FTX and everything. And now, for the first time, we're actually getting regulators and our compliance departments to agree for me to turn staking back on for our platform in mid-May. And I think that's happening for a lot of larger financial institutions that have to follow those compliance rules. And that could be the hidden rocket. You get more people interested in wanting to make yield in that particular asset. And then it does lock you up in a period of time as well. And I think what is the minimum is now 32 units of ETH that you have to get into it. So that's something I think that's not on the charts that could definitely have an impact in a recovery on this asset in the next 30 days.
That's a great point. I think you and many institutions around there that are in custody services are all setting up these things. They're all getting ready to turn that stuff back on due to some of the regulation changes that just happened. And I think that's why we're seeing, we looked a couple of days ago, whales are accumulating Ethereum at a higher rate than we've almost ever seen before. And I think it's the staking stuff has a lot to do with it. And as soon as we get past this environment, I think I'm still extremely bullish on Ethereum.
Heck yeah. I'm loving it. Now, looking at Miles Deutscher give me 1 second here, had a pretty good post here talking about the discrepancy of Bitcoin from the rest of the altcoins. This is kind of a very telling picture right here. Bitcoin market cap, altcoins market cap. And you can see in lockstep. And now just Bitcoin dominance just peeling away, just taking more and more of the market. Haven't seen a cycle like this, or at least we haven't seen something like this in recent memory over the past couple of years. Can the altcoins recover? That's going to be the major question here. But looking at Bitcoin, looks like Bitcoin might be in a better position to recover here. Bitcoin's extended their inflow streak to 10 days. They added another billion. We have the HODL 15 post, I want to say, is right here. Here are the Bitcoin, the last 10 days or last 11 days. Major outflows on the 13th, but then 30 million, 200 million, 200 million, 100 million. and now we're kind of stuck in this like slightly under 100 million. But the bullishness is continuing when you look at Bitcoin. Also, we have a lot of bullish investors looking at GameStop. I know the short sellers are attacking it. If you don't know about what's going on with the short sellers attacking GME, probably because they added Bitcoin to their balance sheet, make sure you watch last night's video. But we have, GME going to 100. This is a $13 billion Bitcoin hedge fund. So we're starting to see the narrative that more and more companies need to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. And then there's no top indicators in. We haven't seen any of these historical Bitcoin bull market top indicators flash just yet. And if you look at the list, this is a long, long list. We actually have the link here from CoinGlass. I can maybe put that in the chat for you folks here. But just kind of looking at pure multiples, still far away. Pi cycle top indicator, still far away. ETF, some of these are going to be newer, like ETF to Bitcoin ratio, days of ETF net outflows. But RSI, 22-day, that's still looking good. In fact, I even wanted to pull that one up. We have the 2-week here. I don't have the 3-week set. So we'll just go with the 14-day RSI. Yeah, we're still nowhere top, but maybe we won't reach this height. But I do think we can definitely reach the March 2024 height. And if you're looking at the RSI right now, so there's just tons and tons of indicators. I don't know if any of these are standing out to you guys. MVRV ratio, 4-year moving average, trend indicator, terminal price, annualized ratio, golden ratio. Too many to name. Some of these I'm not familiar with, like Smithson's forecast. I'm not sure about that one. That one I'd have to look up. But a lot of these have links to the actual charts. You could click it yourself, and I'll put a link in the chat just for you guys. You can check this out yourself. And so when I see this, I don't think we're near the top. I still think Bitcoin could, maybe potentially 2x, but certainly, hit 120, 140, potentially even beyond. I don't know how you folks feel. I'm going to go ahead and put this in chat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we could predict what the top is necessarily going to be this side. It's going to be such an interesting cycle here, and it's going to aggravate a lot of people. But you're watching a new treasury that's implementing tariffs and new policies, trying to drive down the long end yield of our 10-year treasuries without the Fed pivoting or cutting interest rates. Because when they cut interest rates and they implement QT, usually the long end is going to start rising in yield. And so Bassett and them believe with Howard Lutnick and what they're developing or what they're building through these new monetary policies, which is why I don't think you're going to see. I'm sure there's going to be negotiations, like we've seen it with China. China wants to have negotiations on the trade war that's taking place. And however that's going to roll out over the course of the next few months. I also think that Canada's prime ministers are just stupid and might try to be the big guy for a couple months. And that can cause unnecessary headwinds for 2 to 3 months. So it's going to be very interesting to watch us navigate through that market over the next quarter here. But the overall upside to this market, I agree with you, DZ. I don't think this is at all nearly. I don't think Bitcoin's top nearly at all. I think this is a much weirder cycle because of the presidential election, the new monetary and fiscal policies that are being embedded, and that could lead us into Q4, where you just get that same historical second rally in Q4 in November of this year. There's a lot of ways that this can actually roll out, and so for me, it's just like right now, look at the projects. We're dropping a Polygon Matic video here soon. Is Polygon Matic dead, right? A lot of us feel like it is. And so I went and researched that last night. It's like they're actually developing a ton. And I was like, oh, well, they're growing with partnerships. They have active addresses growing on their chain. The TVL is still pretty strong. And while these prices are down 95%, just a lot of these altcoins, it's like I'm looking at some great entry points here on the longer side of this. So can they drop 20%, 30%? Sure. But the upside now here, in my opinion, even for like Bitcoin, even if it drops another 10%, is, the upside still 30, 40, 50% here, potentially by the end of this year. And so I think that is the market we just have to navigate now. Is I think the people that are going to lose the most are the ones that capitulate out. The people that lose most are going to be the people that, are selling their stocks and, fearing for their lives or whatever it is. But the people that recessions are when millionaires are made every single time. And every single time, bled in the streets every single time. And it doesn't change throughout history. And it's funny to me that people have this argument that this time is going to be any different than the last 150 years of our stock market. It's like,
and we haven't started the second half of this conversation yet, Josh. It's been about tariffs. But what's next is, and we're still in rumors of what it's going to look like, but there are some kind of tax benefits or cuts coming for the American people. And we know we saw it in 21. What happens when you put extra money in the pocket of Americans? They go and they buy risk on assets. That's what they did in 21.
Yeah, and also the
They go buy
potential.
brand new sneakers
yeah.
and new iPhones.
If we might see 4
Well,
or
at
5
least this
trillion.
audience
as
is
well.
going to DCA. This audience is going to DCA with that savings. And we talk about the price of certain things going up. Let's remember, when you put more money in the hands and the pockets of Americans, a more expensive eggs or cars or whatever it might be that these tariffs may end up happening, or if this is just a trade negotiation tactic, that's going to benefit us overall. And you're going to see that resurgence in all markets, but it's going to be a little volatile along the way. But that's the second half of the conversation that we haven't even scratched the surface on yet as a country.
And you're
And we do have a $2
correct.
super chat I do want to get to. Can you explain the title of the stream before we get too far past ETH? There were hackers liquidating Ethereum to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars. And so a lot of this came from Thorchain, from some of the Thorchain hacked extraction here. So 2 new wallets believed to be associated with hackers received 14,000 ETH from Thorchain and Chainflip, and they subsequently dumped their ETH for 27 million in stablecoin just immediately. There's also a lot of selling pressure. Anytime you just market dump without some sort of algorithmic way of selling 1% every 100 seconds, just hooing a big fat sell button right there also led to probably a lot of the cascadings, and so that giant red wick, if you saw that on the smaller time frames.
And it's interesting that they chose to do this, right at an inflection point for Ethereum. Like, it was at a tough spot, right, just falling below 2,000, right into the 1900s, and then dump it all. And
you can see it. Look at it. Look right there. It was about 4 hours ago. Huge dump. So that's
the bottom of that wick. What's the bottom of that wick?
Wick down to 1868, close to 1850. But that was a very, very sharp cascading event there. So ETH wasn't hacked, but hackers have stolen ETH, and then they liquidated that ETH for stablecoin. And then you're seeing that's part of the reason we're seeing such a major dump. But maybe that dump just liquidated a lot of longs. And then maybe the degens are going to come in and try to long the market after that. Now, Chris, I want to ask you about this article right here. We got South Carolina considering Bitcoin reserve to protect state assets from inflation. Just another state added to the list here. What do you think the state's impact of hodling Bitcoin can maybe do to the overall market?
I think it's probably the most exciting announcement. Obviously, you have the large nation states like the U.S. and others following suit, Qatar and others that are positioning and saying we want to do this, and the U.S. is going to be in net neutral is their policy, that they have to find ways to do this without spending more money, whether it's savings, et cetera, from Doge. But this is one of the things I love about our country, is that people forget we are a republic of 50 states, and each state has its opportunity to balance its own budget and build its own balance sheet in its own fashion. I think there's a handful of others that are already positioning for this, Texas and Arizona. And interestingly enough, these are the same states that started putting precious metals of gold and silver on their balance sheet and accepting them as payments for tax payments. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a similar announcement from them. This is, to me, this is where I fist pump in the air. This is a time where you're now going to see they're all taking a page out of Michael Saylor, just like GameStop is trying, and saying, okay, my balance sheet is healthier as either a state, a nation, or a business because I'm putting this asset. And man, that's the acceleration of legitimacy that we've been waiting for. And when I was just in New York before I came down here to Atlanta to see you guys, and you can feel the legitimacy in the air. They actually say hello to me when I walk in, and they make sure that my mic's all set up. I mean, I was just the crypto degen for a long time in those interviews, and now I'm like a welcomed guest, and you can feel that legitimacy in the air. It's great.
Yeah, it's and I think that's what's you're talking about the second half of that conversation, right? There's the first conversation, which is tariffs. That's in the immediate term. The second part of this is going to be the tax cuts and a lot of the executive orders and everything that are being pushed out right now. All those still need to be codified, and those were not even like with Bo Hines and what the digital asset community is doing with David Sachs, guys. You need to understand like how Congress operates. So you have the House and then you have the Senate. None of these things are going to roll through both floors until a minimum at least August. And that is their goal. Their goal is try to get by August a lot of these bills and policies starting to be put and pressured for digital frameworks. When you're talking like the tax incomes and everything as well, the tax cuts, also going to take 6 months, 12 months possibly as well. So those aren't necessarily an immediate impact issue for any retailer. So when you're like looking at the market, like, why is this going up? Trump said he's going to do these things. Like, you also have to look at what's happening in the Republican House right now. Republicans are Republicans are kind of scrambled right now. Like, the Democrats lost the election hard. Yeah, sure. But they are winning in Wisconsin right now. I think they just won some more seats in Pennsylvania as well. And so like, there is going to be still political theatrics that prevents from executive orders even being codified after a president signs them right now, which means you could see 6 to 12 months, potentially 2 years before any of a lot of these things actually roll out and affect the market. So I completely agree with you there, Chris, too. It's like, that's like a whole nother, that's a bullish catalyst. Like it's a bipartisan perspective now. It's not Republican or Democrat. It is both that are looking at this industry saying, again, most of them are invested. They're looking at budget neutral policies. I think you're hitting it right on the head here. Is you're going to see these states where you can pay for it in taxes, or their carbon credit system is going to be put onto this, or they're going to make a bunch of different grant incentive programs for just companies in those states, whether it's through a Bitcoin strategic reserve, et cetera. And that's like a whole nother buying factor that we haven't seen into the pressure of Bitcoin. You think the supply shock's bad now? Wait till once these tax policies and all of these incentives are embedded on a state-based level and potentially even on a federal scale.
And Josh, you nailed it there, because we talk about perfect storm timing. So not only will it take about until August for the impact of all this these legislation to get and to actually go through both sides of the house or individual state houses, but we're there. We're getting right in that 450, 550 day timeline post halving, right around that same time period. And that's where I think you could get a little bit of, add a little gasoline to the napalm, and we all know what happens. It gets explosive.
I'm really glad you mentioned that days post halving. You know, obviously that we're big on the 4-year cycle here. That's something we've been tracking for a very long time. Days into the halving, days after the halving. That's usually when you can track tops. That's usually the way you can track alt season, all that sort of stuff. But everything you guys just mentioned, you know, August is when we're going to see some of this stuff starting to play out, but it could take dramatically longer. What do you think? And I'll go around the board with all of this. Chris, Josh, DeSci, you know, what do you guys think about an extended cycle? Traditionally, if you do the math from having to what should be cycle top, we're talking, you know, late October, potentially November of this year. Do you guys have any opinions on an extended cycle, super cycle, or anything like that?
I do have a very strong opinion, but if you share my screen here, I put it in last night's video, everybody. That's why you got to be subscribed. I don't think TJ knew we were going to bring this up, or
no,
I don't think he brought it up because of this, but yeah, you can see the screenshot right there. These yellow lines that are vertical are the Bitcoin halvings, and I go over the exact data that we're talking about right here. I look at the previous 2 cycles compared to this cycle right here and what that might mean for Bitcoin's top.
Well, there you go. So what
You gotta
about,
watch the video, folks.
Watch the video. All right, Chris, what do you think? Josh, what do you think?
I feel like I need to subscribe to DeSci's channel next.
Yeah, it depends. So like someone in chat, I want to just do a little bit of education on, I was wrong on they didn't lose any seats from Wisconsin. Wisconsin right now is the Supreme Court. And that looks like it's going to be going to another judge that would be a Democratic judge. And you guys have to realize the political theatrics that creates, right? It makes it, it gets really tough passing laws and legitimate legislation, which could affect crypto policies. But in terms of a super cycle, right, I think there's more of a case to make it for Bitcoin, where Bitcoin is more sustainable in price action and continues to grow. Because even when I was just in New York just last week, and we're working on a lot of things in the short term, I'll be at Capitol Hill, or not Capitol Hill, but Tallahassee Capitol for Bitcoin Strategic Reserve conversations in Florida in next month. All the conversation is around Bitcoin and reducing taxes on Bitcoin, and, you know, how to make a budget net position on Bitcoin for the state and the federal level. Digital assets are in the conversation, but I think those stockpiles are created after the fact. And so that might be like where you get kind of a double top action in this market. So maybe Bitcoin does really well and altcoins kind of lag behind it. Of course, if Bitcoin goes to 110K, 140K, the liquidity pairs in the ecosystem is going to just boost the rest of the network up, like a lot of your altcoins. But actual alt season, it's getting really, really hard to actually anticipate that turnover, because to get alt season, every single altcoin, and this is something I think people need to really start looking at the crypto space in. Bitcoin is classified and trades as not even trades as a commodity yet, but it is a digital commodity. It's classified by the SEC. The whole market looks at it as a digital commodity, and it's going to soon trade as if it were a gold. I expect that. Whether it takes 2 years or 5 years, I expect that rotation to kind of happen within the market. That means the rest of the altcoin market, it's not a commodity. It's perceived as risk-on assets. A lot of these, when you're talking to these hedge funds and these multi-billion-dollar or trillion-dollar asset management companies, they look at them as software models. They look at this as it's a software, and there could be bugs and there could be issues within these networks. And so having that risk-on mechanic might mean what takes place is you get all these bullish initiatives and these bullish announcements, tax incentives for Bitcoins, retirement funds, sovereign wealth funds, potentially 401ks, et cetera, rolling that Bitcoin, causing a supply shock there. But altcoins are still lagging because they don't start seeing their digital stockpiles and the growth within those policies and sectors for another 6 months or potentially a year after that. And so I think this is just a market where you are living through the most historical moment in our financial sector. You're watching Bitcoin become a true commodity, and you're watching every single asset management company and financial institution tokenize on software products, whether it's smart contract protocols, Ethereum, XLM, etc. And that's going to be a fundamental shift over the next couple of years. And if you're just not in this market, you're going to miss out on all of the upside, because I think by 5 years from today, you're not going to be early at all the crypto.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be out. Your policies are going to be there, and you're just now, an average trader.
Totally. And speaking of that huge upside, I did want to give a quick mention. Obviously, one of the reasons we believe in a Bitcoin IRA, one of the reasons it's a great idea to have your Bitcoin in an IRA is for that tax haven. Basically, is you don't have to pay taxes on all of your future gains. You can see right there on the screen. Check out Bitcoin IRA. The link is in the chat and in the description. You get a $1,000 reward if you get your account set up by tax day. So mention Discover Crypto or DeSci or any of this when you guys call in, and you guys will earn that reward. It's very, very, very advantageous. Literally, I was telling people here in the office, you never hear Elon, almost in a strange way, ever hear him talking about Bitcoin. I think maybe because he's got a Bitcoin whale and he doesn't want people to believe that he's like manipulating his advantage for his own gain. But the one time he talked about Bitcoin, he said he was endorsing Bitcoin IRAs. And so the smartest, richest man in the world is saying you need a Bitcoin IRA. Taxes in crypto, like if we really are about to go into a Bitcoin super cycle and see Bitcoin do what gold did after it was its ETF launch, was basically a 10-year bull run. If we're about to see that for Bitcoin, you want to be getting that into an IRA. You want to start now. Obviously, you can only contribute so much per year, and there's all kinds of qualifications depending on your age and all that sort of stuff. But set one up today. Click the link in the description, and you won't regret it. It's one of the things that people often put on the back burner. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then they make all the money. The big bull run comes, and they're sitting on huge profits, and they have to send that. I remember the first time I paid a $350,000 tax bill in 1 year, and I was like, dang, I really should have thought about some tax havens. Bitcoin IRAs are a really good way to do that before you get that huge tax bill. So you guys should definitely check it out.
Elon Musk just posted yesterday to upgrade your IRAs to Bitcoin. So there you go. It's a perfect day to have Chris come on. He did post a video that was talking about Bitcoin IRAs.
I know that's the only thing I've ever heard him say about crazy. Bitcoin in the last couple of years. So
yeah, that's crazy.
I guess he finally got all my
rockets
tweets.
with chopsticks.
It was a perfect timing.
Advice.
It's literally perfect timing.
Good stuff. All right. Well, speaking of government, speaking of overreach, let's talk about the SEC one more time here. Trump's pick to run the SEC, Paul Atkins, promises a new crypto stance, but he did get a few questions where, Josh is bringing up it's bipartisan, a little bit of crypto support. Well, there is one senator who keeps bucking the trend. She is based in New England, and you probably know who I'm talking about. Who's trying to rain on this parade here.
Pocahontas, yeah.
But so we had the two key nominations. We had Paul Atkins for the SEC, and we had Jonathan Gould for the Officer of the Comptroller here. Crypto only came up a few times, but Atkins fielded no substantial questioning on his views of the oversight of the industry and on the legislation that might direct how the SEC is going to govern crypto. Atkins is seeking to succeed Gary Gensler, who years at the agency established him as the sector's most prominent nemesis. But Trump's nominee already positioned himself in stark contrast. But before it even began, Atkins was being slammed by Senator Elizabeth Warren, the Massachusetts lawmaker who's the committee's ranking Democrat. She registered doubt about his ability to be impartial to the digital asset sector that he served as an advisor. Now, when we bring in a former bank executive, we don't say, well, your years of Wall Street banking leadership, that's not going to give you any bias. But because you held some Bitcoin, you're going to be biased. That makes zero sense, Elizabeth Warren. You can't bring on banking CEOs in this position and say they're not biased, but because Paul Atkins has a little bit of Bitcoin, he's super biased, or he served as an advisor on a council, he's super biased. The rules for thee, but not for me, is something I just can't ever agree. with.
Yeah,
I
they
try
were.
to keep it right, but
That makes me DZ makes me think of the movie Too Big to Fail, where they said that there's a revolving door between Goldman Sachs and the Treasury, and almost everybody that was in the Treasury trying to solve the last financial crisis in 2008 were all former Sachs CEOs or executives. So yes, it's interesting that the rules change when you don't like the concept of that's at play, Miss Senator Warren.
I got a question here from the audience. If I'm holding Bitcoin ETFs on Fidelity, can I roll over into a Bitcoin IRA platform?
Yes, absolutely. And I love the ETFs. I think they're a great part of mainstream adoption. But I am a purist at heart when it comes to alternative assets. I don't do REITs. I do real estate. I don't do gold ETFs. I do physical gold and silver bars. And I don't do Bitcoin ETFs because I like to have the real thing in a secure wallet. 1-to-1 ratio. A few reasons why that's important. It's not a proxy certificate. So I have a guy that used to work for me. He used to always say, with the boats going down, do you want a life jacket or a life jacket certificate? And I think that's a great way to explain an ETF versus the real thing. And then also upon distribution. So when you reach that age of distribution of 59 and a half or 72, you can take the actual Bitcoin out of our platform into your personal wallet and don't have to sell it to dirty dollars or fiat in order to get the distribution taken care of.
Yeah, that's big. In kind, being able to actually hold your Bitcoin versus, like you said, the fiat transition. A lot of that is a little bit nuanced, and a lot of that doesn't play out until years down the road. And I love the fact that you're a big believer in actually holding the real thing. Self-custody is one of our biggest things. Arculus is one of our top partners here. We believe in custodying your own assets or having a custody partner that holds your assets in kind, where it's actual Bitcoin. And like you said, not a piece of paper that says, yeah, we promise we'll give you Bitcoin later. Just let BlackRock hold it for a while.
you don't want the Lloyd Austin Dumb and Dumber IOU sheet. You know, that's not what you want. You want the actual thing behind the scenes. I did
it
have
was
one
right
more
on the briefcase.
Yeah.
It's as good as cash. We do have one more SEC story here. Crypto.com Pro by the SEC nixed. It is no longer a thing. And obviously, this is the reason why we're seeing a nice little pump in Crow. Despite the market downturn, we're seeing a nice little, let me hit refresh here. But yeah, it is up 8.2%. Crow now above a dime. Everyone's celebrating right now. Looks like it closed yesterday, probably around 9.9. It's interesting seeing no data there. Is everybody looking at Crows? Everybody looking at CoinGecko? Are the markets starting to move? Oh, yeah, it just started to move to the downside. I don't know if you saw that red candle just appear out of nowhere, but the Swede trade is doing well. And what is it? The Link trade is flat. I'm trying to get this thing moving, man. So Swede, earlier in the show, he said, man, keep an eye out for Swede being a little bit more bullish in Chainlink. And so that's up. No, man, this trade's just all over the place. Flat. We opened it an hour ago, and we're like literally the same exact entry point. Well, Chainlink, choose a direction.
The other thing we haven't quite mentioned today is, or maybe I did, I can't remember. It's end of week, end of quarter. So we've got a lot of futures, big amount of futures expiring today, both for Bitcoin and Ethereum. So not surprised to see them come back down to levels they were earlier in the month. You've got weekly, monthly, and quarterly all expiring today. So that's usually when you see a lot of this whale action battling for certain prices around around where these contracts are, concentrated. So very common. It's hard to trade on days like today, especially scalp trades, but you definitely have that volatility. But
can my 401k be transferred to the BTC IRA?
Yes.
And just to elaborate, so for folks that I saw a couple other questions pop up about how do you fund it. There are 3 key ways to fund a Bitcoin IRA. The first is your contribution. So you can go to the platform, you open up your account with a quick I think it's like 1.5 minutes it takes to get the application done online. And then you link your bank account like Plaid anywhere else, and you can deposit your funds. This is a critical one by April 15th. By April 15th, you can no longer contribute for last tax year. So that's if you're under 50, it's 7,500. If you're over 50, it's 8,000. That you're able to. The government's given us this tool. It's an ability to save tax-free or pre-tax and take your tax bill down for the year, but the deadline is on the 15th. And then the second most popular is a rollover from an old 401k, 403b, 457s. If you were in the U.S. government, you probably have a TSP, Thrift Savings Plan. And then the third is if you have an existing IRA over at Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, Charles Schwab, you can do a transfer of dollars. It's like moving money from your left-hand pocket to your right-hand pocket. There's no tax implication. So those are the 3 ways. And also, I always like to throw it out there. There are guys and gals standing by. If you have these questions aren't answered for you, you can call 877-936-7175. And you'll have somebody on the phone within 90 seconds to really custom tailor your solution. Retirement is not a one-size-fits-all concept. So we're really here to help folks. Been doing it now 200,000 users since 2016. And we were the world's first in this space. So we're really excited.
And you guys have
human
Roth,
beings answering the phone, not Tesla robots.
and you guys have Roth IRAs too, right?
Oh yeah, Roths are very popular in the crypto space. Whether you now there are some limitations. If you make over about $150,000 a year, it's called the MAGI, the adjusted gross income. You can't contribute to a Roth if you are basically making that much money. But folks will contribute traditional and then they'll convert to a Roth later. But if you're making less than that, Roth is a great way to go. The difference is you don't get the benefit on their tax bill this year. But man, when you get older and say your $5,000 or $6,000 grows to $500,000, $600,000, you're taking that out tax free.
Huge.
FREE, tax free down the road, which is you're gonna love it. I was telling a buddy this morning, told me as I warm up to come on these things because you have such high energy. He was like, "Tell me a great story," and I said, "Well, when I was 8, I got a hole in one." And he's like, "No way." And I was like, "Yeah, I'd taken listens for a while. I don't know if there's a lot of golfers on the channel. And I was blind. My parents didn't know I need glasses. So I didn't even know the ball went into the hole. My dad and the pro had to tell me about that." And he goes, "What's better than a hole in one at 8?" And I said, "A Roth IRA full of Bitcoin at 80. That's my policy."
There you go.
Love that. You're so wise beyond you said that when you were 8, right? It wasn't even invented yet.
As soon as the ball went in, he's like, "Well, Roth IRA is better." So
just expanded from his mind. We do have a worrying news. If you've ever used Gemini or ever used Binance, dark web actors have 100,000 user info here. And so these dark web actors, they said they have hundreds of thousands of user records, names, passwords, location data, putting the list up for sale on the internet. And a day earlier said another user was offering to sell the emails and the passwords with the compromised data containing 132,000 lines of information. But Binance spokespeople said, "We want to clarify no data leak from Binance's systems. Our security team has been monitoring a known hacker who collects data by compromising browser sessions on infected computers. So just be very careful if you do use those two exchanges. Don't want to see you guys get hit." Make sure you watch the GameStop video we put out. I wasn't aware the stocks were hit with restrictions after the short volume. If you don't know, if you're in a shit coin, that thing might dump 40% in a minute. There's nothing you can do, but Wall Street has some protections, and it looks like that stock was hitting some restrictions there. So pretty interesting. Now, we do have an Avalanche ETF. Josh, are you still, what are your thoughts on Avalanche? Is this ETF going to make any movement for the AVAX holders?
I mean, historically, ETFs are the top of cycles, so I wouldn't, if we're looking at historical data, but no, I think ETFs are good long term. It just, you guys have to realize, I think a lot of people out there, I've seen them on the XRP videos. We've done the reaction on this channel where people are like, "Oh, it's going to send that price to just the absolute moon." Just look at your historical data here. So I don't expect much of it, but it does mean it has more institutional interest, which is not at all a bearish thing. And Avalanche is doing some really good things. Of course, they have like the California DMV on their chain. They have some really cool developments that we might be talking about here on this channel in a couple months or within the next month or two. And so I think as a chain, they're a top 20 chain out there. I think you're going to see them alongside Solana and all these other ETFs really start going through. I wouldn't be surprised if we started seeing bundled ETFs as well, and starting to see even like a Litecoin or a Doge down the line. The retail interest is there, and the institutions understand this, and that is where all the trading fees are. It's why Robinhood is going to be such a successful. I don't know if you guys saw that. Robinhood announced their bank. It's like the retail, this is like a moment where banks realize they need retail. They need retail to go, "Hey, I actually trust you. I'm going to put my money with you," because they have unlimited fractional banking and they just use that to borrow and lend and et cetera. And so if they want to start competing, and these institutions want to start competing for this next generation, I just think it's just more upside. It's more adoption. So ETFs, ETPs across the board. You're going to have exchange traded products all through Europe, all through, every other jurisdiction. And it's really good to see Avalanche kind of getting some of that traction.
Nick here with a good chat. I haven't really thought about this before. AVAX is such a solid project with Web3 gaming and RWAs, which is and kind of like Josh just mentioned, some government alliance with the California DMV and Vital Records and stuff they've been doing out there since I think I met with representatives in California about that back in 22, I think it was. I can't quite remember, but Off the Grid, obviously far and away the most successful Web3 game, uses Avalanche for the gun token, and it's really good marketing. And it's interesting to see them capture extreme retail with something like Off the Grid, extreme institutions with something like RWAs, and extreme regulation with getting involved with the government. So it is a pretty well-rounded project. A lot of that hasn't translated into explosive growth just yet. I mean, obviously it's a top 20, where is it ranked? 15 chain on CoinMarketCap, and that's counting stables. You take stables out, it's probably close to the top 10. I definitely think it's one to watch. You guys know it's on my radar. It's something I hold. I like Sonic for DeFi, but I think Avalanche gets a little slept on when it comes to RWAs, because it's not just RWAs. But yeah, something to watch for sure.
Love it.
Great
Love
group
it.
of guys over there too. I had the privilege of meeting them a few years ago, and the founders and the executive team. The reason why they have such a well-rounded platform and what they're looking at is these guys. They're legit players. They've got some smart guys behind them, and they see this space from a lens that sees the future. And those are the kind of folks that I like to put my bets behind.
Love it, love it. We got people earning DeFi yields on AVAX as well. Yeah, AVAX DeFi also going to be pretty big. Now, do you remember the 23andMe hack, Chris, TJ? Remember 23andMe got hacked a little bit ago?
I saw it on the news when I was in New York, of like this long checklist of what you have to do in order to get your privacy back from all the data. And
oh yeah, I'm sure when you delete it off their platform, it's just
not
gone
deleted
forever.
Yeah, no,
there's
like it's a rigmarole you have to go through. It's insane. Yes, so I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, DZ, but I remember seeing that on the news.
Yeah, a little ridiculous. Well, guess what? An altcoin you hold might try to buy 23andMe. It actually makes sense if you think about one phrase. So say Foundation exploring buying 23andMe to put the genetic data on the blockchain. Now this is the genetic data of 15 million users, and they want to put it on the blockchain rails. I didn't think about one word, DeSci. So 65 million of VC fund dedicated to DeSci startups building on the same network. I don't know what 23andMe is going to go for. They filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, so you might be able to get it for a fairly low price. I would much rather buy an existing company for 60 million than to try to fund a bunch of offshoots for 60 million. I think you're going to be better off just buying 23andMe. Should say buy your genetic data.
This was in it's cool to see this happening too, because we I don't know if you remember this, but when I went to Dubai and I missed the DeSci conference, I was supposed to meet Balaji and Ben Johnson, the guy that has his kid's own blood. He swaps it out as plasma or whatever.
Yeah, Brian Johnson.
Thank you, Brian Johnson. With all the longevity, the biotech. I don't know. I'm not staring at his belly button, but that's interesting. Apparently, DZ's got a poster of men's belly buttons in his his basement. But no, it makes sense, because when we were out there, and even when I do all these Twitter spaces, we've trashed on 23andMe forever, and blockchain smart contracts is the way to go for a lot of your genetics and longevity, just information that you need on chain. It's way more secure. It's way more transparent. It decentralizes researches. It decentralizes this is what people need to pay attention to. DeSci is probably one of the most slept on industries, because what you see with RFK doing, attacking all the government funding, trying to get rid of pharmaceutical ads on television and whatnot. Doge is going to come in and probably just destroy a lot of the pharmaceutical funds and grants that are given out. What's happening right now is what is already a very constrictive research area, where college students or scientists that want to go get funding, for example, women's studies, very slept on industry that doesn't receive a lot of funding, especially, I'll keep the politics out. But my point is to this: now having everything on chain and not stuck within a centralized system. For example, the United States, a lot of these pharmaceutical companies, they're not allowed to work with China, they're not allowed to work with Russia, they're not allowed to work with South Korea, they're not allowed to work with Japan. And it's because of rules and regulations. And so what they were all talking about in 2022, and why we got into DeSci in the first place, was because we understand that the issues with the hacks like 23andMe, just leaking all this information and data, wasn't the secure route to go for A, genetics, but also B, they wanted to decentralize that funding and research back to the masses on a global scale. This is something that's been constrained since World War II. After World War II, scientists became more and more centralized. And so we're starting to see that break out. And I don't know if it's this year, but if Say's doing that, that's absolutely amazing to see. I think you're to see biotech and blockchain really integrate. They're already doing so today, but within probably the 5-year time frame. I think by 2030, you're looking at, which is 5 years for anybody that's going to freak out. I know that sounds scary. You're expecting all these Tesla robots and everything. The advancements of technology is rolling out very, very quickly. And I think you're going to see a lot of biotech kind of jump onto that blockchain ecosystem with the token aspect. So it's really cool to see. I think this is really good for Say, especially.
Here's Brian Johnson. He's super happy about this news. That's Brian Johnson right there with the chicken skin
he doesn't
torso.
Have a belly button.
No, he's right.
I wish I was in that good of shape.
Where's
He's
his
right out of
belly
the
button?
Matrix. He's right out of the Matrix.
He does kind of have a Matrix feel to him, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Look at that.
I'm-
Yeah, that's
wanna know
Agent
his
Smith
belly
on his off day.
Yeah, that's his Agent Smith's son, the new generation. Mr. Hollywood wants to know, did you enter that long, Josh?
I'll open one right now. No, sorry,
There
I've
you go.
been staring at the
Yeah,
screen.
we've
Yeah.
been busy doing a show. So
Yeah, my bad, my bad.
Chainlink
let me
still
see.
freaking flat. Chainlink still flat. 1%. Woo, woo. We're in the green. But Say still doing well. 25%. So we're up actually a little bit from when we last checked on it. So Say is already, or Sui, I'm sorry, I'm saying Sui. But speaking of some DeFi and some bullish altcoins, Chainlink seeing a jump in social dominance across social media following the meeting with the government leaders. The number 11 market cap has now jumped 25% in value since March 10th. And we're seeing growth. This is the interesting part. Growth from key stakeholder wallets that are holding between 10,000 and 10 million. Chainlink
Wow.
wallets of this size now hold an all-time high amount of coins, making up 43% of the coin's entire supply. This is the opposite of what you see. You typically don't see whale addresses accumulate on the long term 5 years after a token is launched. You expect the whale walls to shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. To me, this is signaling large legacy institutions like BlackRock. Somebody's loading up on Chainlink for some potential explosive action in the future. That's my 2 cents there. I don't know if you guys had any takes before I jump into Cardano.
I think for me, Link, I simplify it in my brain is it feels a little bit like the picks and shovels concept. As far as the infrastructure that it's going to play. So if you're betting on that, it's kind of like not betting on the gold miners themselves, but selling them picks and shovels out there in the gold rush. So
yes,
I could see why that accumulation makes sense. And they're playing it right, going with the digital chamber, shaking babies, kissing hands, doing what they need to do to make sure they're a part of the conversation.
Yeah. That's funny.
That's what happened to me. That's what happened to me.
Yeah,
Shook
it's
all
like-
your hair
It
out of
shook
my
all your
head.
hair off, dude. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
just the follicles were sprinkling out. Let's talk about Cardano for a second. You see ADA stablecoin right below Joss. Well, this just in. Founder Charles Hoskinson, I think World Liberty Financial guys are great. We'll see where that relationship goes. If you weren't aware, Charles Hoskinson moderated the panel with the World Liberty 5 founders. Don Jr. called in as well. This is 2 days ago. They seem open and willing and able to work with people. It'd be really nice to see if there's a path to get the World Liberty 5 stablecoin on Cardano. At the same time, we've been talking to Ripple about getting the XRP stablecoin RLUSD on Cardano. But we're seeing a little bit of bearishness. We're seeing a lot of people talking about the death cross that's coming for Cardano. I wanted to point that out. If we bounce from this line, this is the shorter term moving average. This is the longer term moving average. I think the shorter term moving average is going to bounce up in time before this crosses, and then that would spell the death cross there. Let me shrink this RSI for a second. Look at this range and look how well we bounced off of this. Folks, I swear to God, I have not touched this this range on the bottom. I put it on the 5 minute. This was shockingly accurate because I put it on the candle body corner right there, and you can see there's another point. I put them right there. On the 5 minute, look at that.
Jeez.
Look at that. I should have had some longs ready right there. But, oh well, can't catch all the trades there. But yeah, Cardano, to me, it's strong level of support. Things are starting to feel a little bit bullish. We got tap tools. Google searches for Cardano price prediction have surged 160% in the past 7 days. There is a sharp rise in the sentiment around Cardano, and I think the sharp rise in price is going to follow.
I mean, that means it's time
news.
Well, hold on. That means it's time for another Cardano price prediction video if we're seeing those Google trends go up. But yeah, what do you got, Josh?
I think that's a great idea
I just thought
for this weekend.
was funny because we all had this conversation at the beginning of the show, and like Chris and DeSci. European Union to make trade concessions to avoid President Trump's reciprocal tariffs. So shout out to you guys, dude. Yeah.
Hey, by the way, DZ, before you make the Cardano price prediction video, let's get your Roth set up and let's give you a Roth Cardano so that you can really put it behind.
I like
put
that.
the power behind it. I think it's a good idea this weekend.
Well,
will I resurrect Charles like 50 years from now when I sell?
yeah.
We'll see.
Well, hey, you'll have enough money too because you're not going to be paying taxes. That's the
He
key.
might live forever, like Brian Johnson. We're reversing aging in mice. Maybe some of those tech billionaires are probably going to be on the forefront of that. Like, why is Elon 300 years old? They'll say one day.
Yeah. One thing I did want to mention again about Bitcoin IRA, Chris said it earlier in the show, and DZ actually did follow up with it. The fact that you can pick up the phone and talk to somebody and get your questions answered is extremely rare in this space. So that's another thing that we love about Bitcoin IRA. That's another reason we love to work with them and endorse this product. because they really do care about the individual on the other side. They really do put emphasis on customer service. We have pinned the phone number in the description here. And if you have any questions at all about how to get this set up, you can just call. Any questions. Can I roll mine over? Can I move this in? Do I start a new account? What if I'm already employed? What if I'm employed over here? What if I'm a nonprofit? All of that stuff. Like he said, you call it and you'll be on the phone with somebody very, very quickly. They have really good response rate. They have a team standing by at all times. So if you guys have seen this and if you're at all interested, give them a call. The phone number is pinned in the chat and in the description. So make sure you check that out today, and get going on that. We're going to be at tax day before you know it. $3,000 is a free $1,000. So, and that could, you put that in Bitcoin, and that $1,000 could turn into much more by the time you're ready to retire. So
love it. And yeah, 100%. I'll work on a Cardano video today. I think that's a great idea. I see the chat talking about stablecoins. Stablecoins are just CBDCs and sheep's clothing. Why are you like a stablecoins? No, none of us are saying that. But there was a full draft of the Stablecoin Act released just yesterday. Now, there's one thing I really want to point at. No yield-bearing stablecoins. And so because they can't have yield-bearing stablecoins, it's like, I think DeSci had it naturally built in. Now we're going to have to rely on DeFi protocols. Is this beneficial for World Liberty Fi? It certainly is. Was it thrown in there for that reason? I would say it's probably more because of Terra Luna and previous algorithmic stablecoins. Probably don't want to try to repeat what happened in 22. But this is huge for Aave. This is huge for Chainlink. This is huge for your favorite DeFi protocol. And there's a couple other things, a little bit more boring. The reserves kind of breaks that down. Banks, credit unions, approved non-banks can issue. Interoperability standards. But to me, the major takeaway, no yield-bearing stablecoins in the Stablecoin Act. Am I wrong in assuming this is just insanely bullish for Chainlink and Aave and other DeFi protocols? Yes. All right.
No, you're not. I was waiting for them to jump in, but no, you're absolutely not. I think it is extremely bullish. All this regulation getting cleared out of the way. I think it's also ironically bullish for Ethereum, like we were talking about with the yield, being able to earn yield on other coins. Obviously, DeFi you can earn a lot on stablecoins right now in DeFi, and custodians and banks eventually are going to start doing that. They're not going to let people issue stablecoins that directly earn yield, but stablecoins within the DeFi ecosystem will absolutely be earning yield. And it's definitely something that we're going to see in the future. Last question that we have for Chris here.
I hate that too, just so you know.
Hate what?
That Stable Act, because that to me is a way for the banks to control the sector still without.
That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah. And it just, I want to fight that. I think that's ridiculous, but it is what it is.
So Chris, last question we have for you. And this is a great question. Very important question. Who has custody of the keys for the Bitcoin IRA? How do you guys handle custody? What partners do you use, etc.?
Absolutely. Great question. The Bitcoin way. So when it comes to retirements, the government gives us this nice little tax shelter umbrella, but they have some rules around it. And one of them is the indicia of ownership. So if you wanted to put a house in your IRA, you wouldn't be able to live in that house. If you wanted to hold gold and silver coins, you wouldn't be able to put them in your safe at home. You'd have to put them in a regulated and approved and insured depository like Brinks or Delaware Depository. The same is true of Bitcoin and its wallets. And we were the first to design this. We worked with our partners exclusively at BitGo over there, Mike Belshi and the founders, to create the first IRA wallet solution. And then since then, we've built around a Pentagon of custody. So the keys are held by a regulated trust custodian known as Digital Trust. I saw a comment here about Nevada. It is one of the more bank-friendly states like South Dakota and Kansas and others. They're just bank-friendly states where licensing is actually available for. And if you land in like Kansas City, you'll see every major bank has giant buildings there, Fidelity, et cetera. Everybody's regulated by these places. And to dive in a little bit on the Pentagon of custody, I recommend giving a call to one of our vice presidents of retirement so you can understand that at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. That crypto is not leaving anywhere and in the ecosystem. And also when you log into your account, unlike a Coinbase or another exchange, we're strictly cold. So even if you were to get SIM swapped or you to get hacked, which we have MFA to protect you, your assets are not leaving the ecosystem until we do AI identity verification. You talk to a person like me on video, you answer a lot of security questions, and we do micro testing, whitelisting. So there's this whole Pentagon of custody around it. I could probably go on. I know we're almost out of time, but it's designed strictly to fit within the IRS parameters, but still give you exactly what you're looking for as a crypto long-term holder.
Perfect.
Love it. Love it. Well, folks, we're about to go into the members stream. I'm going straight into there. Maybe give me a few minutes to get the camera set up and everything. I'm going to answer every single question you may have. So get those questions in. Go ahead and start thinking what you want to ask DeSci, and we'll probably look at our trades live and maybe do some Cardano alpha, maybe give you a little sneak peek at what might be in this weekend's video. So make sure you are going to be joining us. And if you do want to join, there's a join button down below. Chris, TJ, Josh, any final words here?
No, I'm going to start working on a video here for the weekend. Polygon Matic video should be going out. There's no crazy price predictions. Well, there is actually a price prediction in it, but it's ultimately just going over all of the recent ecosystem partnerships of Polygon Matic itself. Because I was honestly shocked because I was expecting way less than what we found. So, some good news at least coming out of that in terms of the price action. I think that's going to happen in the cycle with Paul or Pole. You're gonna have to watch that video. But in terms of the weekend video, I got a lot to break down. There's a lot to cover that's going on in Congress with the Stable Act. I think I kind of want to break down what that could possibly, because the Stable Act is, I want to see cities and states. I think states should be the largest net buyers of U.S. Treasuries around the world. It shouldn't be China. It shouldn't be Germany. It shouldn't be Japan. It should be our local states, and we should be using Doge in our efficiencies or our programs to make it a more efficient tax incentive system where states can actually start generating a net income off incentivizing, whether it's growth within a certain sector or the carbon credit markets or, just your tax policies. It's budget neutral, has no effect on the taxpayer, creates an actual net income, and they could earn yield off that. That can go to producing, grant programs for local schools or scholarships, go back to building roads, housing, that type of stuff. So I'm very interested in how that's going to play out, but I want to do a full video on that. I think it's very interesting to watch take place. And I'm preparing you guys for something that we've been working on that you guys are going to see over the next probably about month to 2 months here. So I'm excited.
Chris, any closing thoughts?
I just want a huge thank you having me down here, hosting me here in Kennesaw, Georgia, having a great time with you guys. Your community is so welcoming and so friendly. And everybody that has joined us at Bitcoin IRA from your community has loved it. I hear back from my team members that they absolutely love the folks in your guys' community. So I just can't say thank you enough, and I can't wait to be back down here and see you guys again.
Yeah, awesome, man. We're probably going to be hanging out at the Bitcoin conference in Vegas in not too long. All I wanted to say to close it up is Alexandra G, what a G. She just gifted 5 memberships to other people in our community. That's awesome. Spreading the love on a Friday. So thanks to her, 5 more people are going to get to go see DZ's extra secret sauce. So it's Happy Friday, guys. It's a beautiful day out there. Yeah, he's going to show you the belly button. There you go. So
right,
enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll see you guys at the top.